warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. I feel privileged to be asked to give the keynote address at this second meeting of the KL Summit. We are unable to meet physically, but through this, the internet, through Zoom, we can still converse with each other. I hope that we can achieve some of the ideas through this system, although we are not able to meet each other. Now, I've been asked to talk about systems of government. Obviously, there are many systems, and systems of government have been introduced because of the failure of the previous system. It all started with a kind of strongman rule, but after some time, it was found necessary, as the community grows bigger, to have a different system of government. And then there was the monarchy system, which lasted a long time. But then the monarchies also failed in many ways, and people begin to think that they should rule themselves. And so we have the republics, we have the city-state, like those in Greece, where the people want to rule by themselves, But they find that it is quite impossible when the numbers are big, so they resort to having representatives. And representatives were given power. As we all know, power corrupts. So after some time, the representatives began to become corrupt and fail in their governance. And so we have to go back to a system that is now very popular, but still based on the idea that people must rule themselves, for themselves, by themselves. And this is what we now call democracy. Democracy means that the people will have the power to influence the governance of their country so that they will gain the most from having the government. But unfortunately, even democracy seems to have failed. We find, for example, that although the leaders are chosen by the people, eventually if the leaders stay on too long and they have too strong a support, they tend to abuse their power. And this we have seen in many countries in our times. The latest one, of course, is the case of America. The United States of America, is a democratic country. It has functioned quite well for many, many years. And then we find that the person chosen to be the president seems to be abusing his power and doing things that was not the normal things expected of the President of America. So what is happening is that we have a system, and the system is the democratic system. It is a good system, but unfortunately, in the hands of a bad leader, the system can be abused, and abused extensively. People begin to think that they must get rid of the leader who's been abusing the system. By getting rid of a leader, it's not easy. He has his own strength, he has his own backers, and he would continue to rule the country despite becoming already unpopular. In other countries also this can happen. Malaysia is a democracy. We have had leaders who were chosen by the people, but we have a bad choice, and then we find that a prime minister chosen democratically by the people abusing his power to the extent that the country suffered very badly, having incurred losses in business, as well as indulging in borrowing from foreign sources, from international sources, so much money that it placed the country in a very difficult position, because we have to pay the debts incurred by this leader, democratic leader. What I'm trying to say is that systems are good. We all try and improve on system. When we introduce a system, initially it's quite simple, but then new things are added to it, and then it becomes very complicated, and then there will be abuses, and then the system is rejected by the people, and a new system needs to be introduced. So it is really not the system that is the problem. It is the people who are operating the system. If the person operating the system is not of good quality, then the best of systems will fail. Even if we have a monarchy, for example, an absolute monarchy, but if the man who is the king is very considerate, is very concerned about the welfare of the people, he wants to spend all the money on building the needs of the country, then the monarchy also functions. It is a system which many have condemned, but in the hands or led by a good, considerate ruler, the system may work very well. But a democracy, which is supposed to be the best system ever invented by man, at times we find that the chosen leader is not a good leader. He abuses his position. He does all kinds of things that are detrimental to the well-being of the people. This we have seen recently. Of course, the example I stated just now was the case of America. This is a country that boasts of being a great democracy. They have a system that works, because in a democracy, if there are too many parties contesting, then almost none would ever have a good majority to set up the government. In that case, they will have to form a marriage of convenience between the big party and one small party in order to gain the necessary majority. And that doesn't work so well, because in that case, the small party would be demanding a lot for itself, because if it leaves the coalition will collapse and fall. So that kind of coalition is not very good for any country. In Malaysia, we have a coalition, but the coalition is before the election. They came together, 13 parties came together, form a coalition, and decide that in any one constituency, they will field only one person from any of the parties in the coalition. And all the 13 parties will back that candidate, although many, of course, will not be supporting candidate from their own party. It may come from any of the other 13 parties, but all 13 parties would support. And because they work together and they give support to each other, they have been able to win almost all elections. For 60 years, Malaysia had a coalition government made up of 13 parties, and the country remained stable and was able to function quite well. But then that is a coalition of 13 parties. But a coalition which is formed after an election, when no one has a majority, and there was a need for the biggest party to team up with a small party in order to gain a majority. In that case, we find that the small party would demand for all kinds of things, because the small party knows if it pulls out, the government would fall. Then we have many other systems, and of course the best system in a democracy is to have only two parties. When you have two parties, one or the other would win. When you have many parties, it's not always possible for them to have a majority. So a two-party system is seen almost in all the successful Western countries. In England, of course, you have the conservatives against Labour, and in America there is the Republican against the Democrats, and in many other countries also they have only two parties. But since democracy gives freedom for people to form their own parties and contest, very often there are too many parties contesting. So the system is good, but the way it is implemented is not good. And on the top of that, of course, is the question of who becomes the leader. Who becomes the leader because he has the majority. Now, if the leader is very well focused on developing the country, on giving his best in order to see the country benefits from his rule, then this democracy will work. But over time, if a person stays on too long as a leader, there is always a tendency to abuse the system. So it is not the system, it is mainly the person concerned. So how do we ensure that the person who is elected as the leader in a democratic system will do well, will carry out his task with full responsibility for his country? This is a question of value system. You know, everybody has certain values, and these values determine the quality of the man, determine the behavior of the person. If the qualities are good, then of course he will deliver, he will do well. But sometimes they have bad qualities. For example, some people work hard because working hard is a part of their culture, their value system. But in some countries, people tend to be laid back. They do not work hard enough, and because of that, their performance is not good. Now, for a leader, there is a need for some spiritual feeling, some dedication to higher values. That means that if a leader is well, we will say religious, and adheres to the religious values of his faith, then it is likely that he will be a good leader. Now, as we all know, Islam is not just a religion, it is also a way of life. And the way of life of anybody, of any group or people, determines whether that person or the group will succeed or not. Now, we see some countries doing well in terms of their performance. They are doing well because they have a good set of values. For example, they are very hardworking, they are very honest, they deliver, they uphold justice, they are not cruel. All these things come from the inner self, the value system that is upheld by the person, or better still, by the community. Now, if we have that kind of value system, I am quite sure the leader will be performing very well. But how do we ensure that the leader has these good values? I find, for example, that our religion of Islam provides us guidance in terms of values. What are the values of Islam? This is given in the Quran, and if you go through all these values, you will find that they are all very good and they all will make you a better man. But unfortunately, most of us, although we claim we are Muslims, we perform all the what is compulsory for us. We pray, we fast, we give the zakat, and then we perform the Hajj, we say the article of faith. But beyond that, we don't seem to be following the teachings of Islam in terms of our values. For example, this is a very clear example. Islam forbids us from killing. To kill a person is to kill the whole of humanity. And certainly a Muslim must not kill a fellow Muslim. But you know, today we see them killing each other, doing nothing else but killing each other and performing the work of their enemies. So this is clear that although we are Muslims, we do not follow all the teachings of Islam, and we follow our feelings, and we do things based on some teachings by certain people. Some people would lead any group to encourage you to do acts which are contrary to the teachings of Islam. So if we want to have a good leader, or we want to have good leaders in the Muslim world, I think we should go back to the Quran and do what the Quran says, and not do what some people say, some leaders say. So then I think we would have a better set of leaders, and they would provide good governance for any country, irrespective of the system. A system is important because it puts into perspective all the needs of governing a country, but you need a good person to make that system deliver the best that is supposed to come from that system. So I believe that at this moment we need the system which allows the people to influence the governance of their own country. And of course the people will want to have the best for their country. Although sometimes, of course, some people, some countries where the education is very low, maybe the citizens are unable to distinguish between what is best for them and what is not. So then the majority might elect somebody because of corruption. For example, corrupt leaders might pay people to vote for them, and then of course you are going to see a government of corrupt people, and that will be very bad. So the ordinary citizen should be very careful about the leaders they choose. If they are very well educated and are able to distinguish between what is good and what is bad, what is well promoted, especially by our religion, and what is denied or proscribed by our religion, then I'm quite sure we would be able to set up good governance based on some system. Democracy is a very good system, but other systems also can be good if the leader is good. So I hope that in the course of our discussion, we can hear views about the kind of environment or the kind of situation that will help Muslim countries to be ruled by good governments who cares for the welfare of the people and for the development of their countries. I think I should stop there and let's hear the comment. Thank you.
Thank you, His Excellency, Tun Dr Mahathir Mohamad. Before we get on the specific intervention by all our esteemed panelists, I'm just wondering if any of the panelists have some clarification at this point to Tun Dr Mahathir and what was said. If not, we will invite our panelists one at a time to be able to deliver their specific remarks. Any question, remarks, clarification that would be helpful at this point to Dr Mahathir, panelists, Excellency?
Just a brief question. I'm Rafiq from Tunisia. Dr. Rafiq.
Please, Dr. Rafiq, please, go ahead.
Just to clarify from His Excellency about his view, want to be sure whether the problem in the political system itself, let's say the democracy is called the democratic system, the liberal democratic system in itself, which is misfunctioning due to the accumulation of crises and problems, or just the problem of the political leader themselves. That, for example, that we have seen during the last few days, if not few weeks in the United States. Is the problem is within the political system itself, or just related to the political leader himself?
Yes, political leader plays a very major role in determining whether the government works or not. But also the people must understand the system. If they don't understand the system, it will not work. For example, in a democracy, by voting, simply voting, putting a tick on a piece of paper, you can elect a person. But obviously, when there is a number of parties contesting, not all the parties can win. Only one party would win. But I noticed that in many countries, the losers do not want to accept losing. When they lose, they say that it must be due to some cheating, and they go back to the streets and try to bring down the elected government. Now, in a democracy, it is important, of course, for the conduct of the election to be done well and without any cheating. But what is important is that the loser must accept having lost and wait for the next time the election is held. But if the loser refuses to accept the result and take to the streets and try to bring down the government, then democracy will not work. But having done that, of course, the quality of the leadership is important. Leaders should always think about their followers, not about themselves. Must think about their followers, the people who elected them. So if we have good leaders, I am quite sure that with acceptance of the system where the majority would lead the country for the time being, maybe 5 years, maybe 4 years, and the losers will support or at least not try to bring down the government, then democracy will work.
Thank you, Tun. Any further clarification that could be helpful? Clearly, it's not just the system is manifestation of the value system that Tun has outlined and emphasized a lot. So it will be better for us to try and figure out how to build a good value system throughout the world. Any question, any clarification before we move on to our first? Please, His Excellency Dr. Amro Daraj.
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khairan, Dr. Mahathir, for this very valuable talk. Just wanted to clarify that when we talk about Islam that has a very sound set of ethical values that could govern, that could maintain a good system of governance, in many cases, actually, people have been misusing Islam, claiming that they are governing according to Islamist values, and actually, this would give a very bad example for that. A lot of people in the West and even in our Muslim countries argue that Islam cannot work to provide a governing system just because of the practices that they saw happening from these rulers. So I would like you to shed some light on this, please.
Yeah. Well, I would like to say this, that Islam is not wrong. Islam is perfect, but the followers are wrong. They do not really follow the teachings of Islam. If they follow the teachings of Islam, they will be successful in life and in death. That is my belief. Because when you read through the Quran, you find that all the good values are promoted in the Quran. For example, when you judge with justice. That is emphasized many times. Even simple things like when you weigh things, when you are selling or buying things, when you weigh, you must weigh accurately and use a good weighing machine. All these things are given in the Quran because the way of life of Muslim is governed by the Quran extensively from birth to death. So if you follow, I'm quite sure you will do the right thing. But what has happened now is that people have hijacked the religion and say that this is Islamic. It's not Islamic at all. How can you say it is Islamic when the Quran says you cannot kill and you kill? And it is horrifying to see a man being killed while they begin with Bismillah, in the name of Allah, the merciful, the compassionate, and then you kill a person. That you are doing exactly the wrong things, forbidden by Islam, but you do it in the name of Islam. So this is happening in many places because we use Islam in order to get leverage, because when you say this is Islamic, Muslims are attracted to it, they support it, but actually you are not doing what Islam teaches us.
Thank you, Tun. If I may, if there's anything, no further urgent question or clarification at this point, if I now would kindly invite all the panelists now to be prepared with their specific intervention on the topic of system of government. First off, in no particular order, if you don't mind, His Excellency, the Deputy Prime Minister former Deputy Prime Minister of Turkey, Dr. Amrullah Ishla, you have the floor. If I understand you correctly, you will deliver your address in Arabic. So what's going to happen is after His Excellency deliver his address to us, Jihad will do a quick summary on what was said by His Excellency. His Excellency, you have the floor.
تفضل ما عليكم.
معالي أيها المشاركون، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. بداية أقدم شكري الجزيل لتنظيم هذه الندوة لمناقشة أنظمة الحكم في العالم وخاصة في العالم الإسلامي. وسبق وأن استمعنا إلى كلمة السيد المهثر محمد واستفدنا من كلمته وتجاربه. فأنا في كلمتي سأتكلم عن تجربة يعني تطبيق